Thanks to mainstream media and Hollywood movies, we're all fairly familiar with creepy dolls that haunt their owners. The majority of these fictitious accounts, regardless of how sensationalised they are by the grandiose budget of movie productions, are in most cases rooted in truth. I use the term truth loosely, of course, in that these real-life accounts were indeed testimony of the people involved, but whether or not they are actually true, well, I'll leave that for you to decide. Whatever you choose to believe, I think that we can all agree that the idea of a child's doll being possessed is nothing short of nightmare fuel. My name is Johnny and welcome to the Oddest. Let's take a look at 3 truly creepy cases of haunted dolls. Our first story takes us across to Japan, a country that has centuries worth of folklore, legends and ghost stories. In 1918, a teenager named Eikichi Suzuki purchased a large doll from Hokkaido for his younger sister Okiku, who also named the doll Okiku. Okiku's family were devastated and heartbroken when the little girl passed away at a very early age. Her family came to believe that Okiku's spirit was inhabiting the doll and the hair on the doll was growing. Despite originally having shoulder-length hair, after a period of time the family would discover that the doll would now have hair past her knees. Some people believe that the doll doesn't contain the spirit of the little girl Okiku, but instead is inhabited by a demon called Hariyanago. According to legend, Hariyanago is said to roam the small island of Shikoku and trap young men with her beauty. Once lured towards the demon, Hariyanago would ensnare the man with her incredibly long raven black hair which, said if cut, would regrow faster than that of a human's. Japanese demons are always the most terrifying in my opinion. The doll currently resides in the Manenji temple in Hokkaido, where it is claimed that a priest regularly has to trim Okiku's still growing hair. On the 25th of October 1900, one of the wealthiest families in Key West, Florida, welcomed the birth of their son, Robert Eugene Otto. The family had become accustomed to calling him by his shortened middle name, Gene. Not long after Gene's 3rd birthday, the family employed a new nursemaid to assist in the raising of the wee boy. The nursemaid's employment with this family, however, would be short-lived, as the family were renowned for firing staff over the most trivial of things. How the boy's new best friend came to be in the house is still a point of speculation. Some sources say that it was the boy's grandfather that delivered the doll to him upon his 4th birthday after buying the toy in a backstreet market somewhere in Germany. Other sources claim that prior to his nursemaid's bitter departure from the house, she had furnished Gene with a now cursed doll. In any case, Gene loved the stuffed toy and affectionately named him Robert. It wasn't long before they became inseparable, and soon the staff and servants of the house would report that they could hear 2 young boys talking to each other behind the closed door of Gene's bedroom. It was widely assumed that Gene was merely providing the additional voice of Robert, which had a deeper and rougher tone than himself. After all, kids will be kids. They certainly enjoy roleplay. Either way, the family were happy that Gene was contented living in his wee fantasy world. But soon, staff would claim that, no, it wasn't Gene just providing these 2 voices, it was 2 distinctly different voices. One day there came a loud scream from inside Gene's bedroom. Upon hearing this, his parents ran across the landing to investigate. They would later claim that moments before entering the boy's room, they could hear devilish laughter that certainly didn't come from Gene. The laughter would continue clear as day as the parents and the staff struggled to try and open the boy's door. Finally though, they managed to get into the room. They found Gene cowering on his bed and broken toys and furniture thrown throughout the room. The young boy sobbed that Robert had done it and pointed towards the opposite side of the room where the doll was sat on the window ledge, looking right back at them. This behaviour would continue over the coming weeks and months. Other seemingly unexplainable events occurred, including Gene's other toys and dolls being found hidden around the house, either broken, torn or mutilated. Items of silverware would be discovered bent or warped into odd shapes. There were also reports of staff walking into a room and hearing the door slam closed and locking behind them, only to discover to their horror that there was no one else at home at the time. One of the staff openly admitted to the family that they believed that the nursemaid had cursed the doll with some sort of hex or voodoo before she left. Gene would eventually move to Paris to study art. Whilst he was gone, locals in the area would make claims to see Robert the doll appearing at various times and at various windows in the property. Gene married Annette Parker in Paris on May 3rd, 1930. The couple returned to the Otto family home in Key West to live there until Jean died in 1974. His wife died 2 years later. Robert the doll was subsequently donated to the nearby East Martello Museum. Sitting upright inside a glass cabinet of curiosity in the Quesnel City Museum, British Columbia, clutching a stuffed baby lamb, is a small enamelware doll called Mandy. Mandy arrived at the museum in 1991, donated by a woman who wished to remain anonymous. Almost immediately after Mandy moving into her new home, things started to happen. Museum staff instantly noticed that her clothing was filthy, in fact, too dirty to be on display. So they stripped the doll of her clothing in order to get it laundered, placing the doll into a plastic bag to prevent any damage or scratching. It was then that several members of staff were gobsmacked to see what appeared to be the doll moving and making noise from within the bag, only to investigate by removing her to discover that the doll had no mechanical parts whatsoever and as such would be unable to move. No way. The staff joked that maybe she was annoyed at having her clothing removed, and maybe after having a fresh laundered set of clothes put back on, it would make her feel a bit better and less chucky stabby. The creepy stuff is coming. Visitors would claim to hear tapping sounds coming from the cabinet, as if the doll was tapping her wee hands against the glass. On one occasion, her toy stuffed lamb was discovered outside of the locked glass case on the floor, despite no one being anywhere near her at the time. Several months later, staff opened the museum one morning and discovered that all of the exhibits had mysteriously been opened during the night when the building was securely locked. It seemed that a number of the items had been maliciously thrown around the room, like the acts of a petulant child suffering a tantrum. Strangely though, the only case that was still locked and untouched was Mandy's. At this point, the curator of the museum decided to reach out to a medium friend to come and have a look at Mandy. The medium said that he had discovered that the doll was once owned by a little girl. This little girl sadly passed away while still clutching the doll, and he claimed that the spirit of the wee girl was trapped inside the doll. Now that's a fairly spooky revelation. Case closed. We're done with that. So the curator decided to track down the woman that initially donated Mandy. He was not ready for the very different story that she would tell him. The woman lived alone and had always done so in her adult life, when one evening she was startled to hear the sound of a baby crying coming from the basement of her home. As she slowly descended the stairs into the basement, she could clearly see the porcelain doll lying right in the middle of the floor. She had been up and down to the cellar several times that same day, and there certainly was no doll at that time. She decided to donate it to the museum because all other efforts to get rid of the doll seemed pointless. She even tried to throw it in the bin on the street just moments before the bin was uplifted, only to walk back to her house, hear the baby cries one more time and find the doll had returned back to the basement. She had said that after donating Mandy to the museum, everything seemed to cease. To this day, Mandy still remains on show at the museum, and the staff there insist that the doll is not evil, just childish. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out this video. I appreciate every single one of you. Take care, and I'll see you in the next story.